buckle up your tape as I give you a day in the life of facilities maintenance.
Hey there. Well, just like the last project that I was kind of working at in bits and pieces and so didn't really start filming at the beginning, the same thing's happening here. This is one where we had to come up with a solution for a problem. We had to make some of our own parts, come up with the solution in-house, because what was actually coming from the supplier who sold us the initial parts for our thing, they didn't stand up. They lasted a year and started falling apart. So we made it better. So we ordered these banner brackets. They're brackets that go to your light poles, and then you can hang banners on them. The name kind of says it all. They're designed for street poles, light poles. And the first thing that I looked at when I saw their website, I noticed that they were modeled on octagonal shaped poles. And so I actually emailed the company, said, will these work for a square pole? And they assured me that yes, they would work for a square pole. They did not work for a square pole. There's too much stress around the square pole itself. And I've taken these old, really it's a gigantic hose clamp, and I've straightened it back out again. But if you take a look closely here, you see that crack there? There's too much stress on the corners and they were cracking. And we put them up December of 2023. We had a mild winter last year. In November, December of this year, when we started getting a little bit of wind and then it was colder, they started to fail on us. And when I say cold here, we're not talking East Coast cold. We're talking like -5 Celsius, -10. It's not like a Saskatchewan winter where it's 40 below 0 Celsius. So essentially, I don't know that the weather even had anything to do with it. It was just the stress of these band clamps on the corners of the poles. And so I thought, what can I do? I looked at it and I went, well, really, if I make the square pole round, then that will completely relieve the stress on the actual corners themselves. And so that's exactly what I did. I designed this little piece on just a piece of paper. I drew it up quickly. It's 1.25 inches high. It's the groove is 1/2 inch wide to accept the band clamp. I figured out the circle, the size of circle that I'd need. Sent it over to John, who 3D printed the pieces for me. Actually, the kids did it. We went through one prototype before we landed on the exact design that we needed. And then we made sure that our material that we were using, our printing material, was UV stable and strong enough to be used for this type of an application. And really, it's just an ABS plastic that it's being printed in. And yeah, so did it work or not? It worked perfectly, like really, really well. The band clamps, most of them were toast. I don't want to reuse them anyway. And so we just bought some bulk band clamping and cut the length, the pieces that we needed. Yeah, they are, the brackets are so secure on the posts now that they will not fall off ever. It can't fail.
There's no weak point on it anymore. They failed.
So the system where we figured we had everything figured out, we didn't have everything figured out. It's failed. But just like the previous system, well, no, not just like it. Previously, where the failure was happening is at the corners. The band clamp was stressed too much, wrapping around a 90-degree corner, and it was cracking. This time, what's failing, and it also failed on the previous ones too in a couple of instances, and it's the actual gear clamp itself. So all of these gear clamps, this is what's failing. I think this type of an application is fine so long as there is no movement whatsoever. But when there is movement, and on these guys, because you're essentially dealing with a big sail, the wind catches that, it creates movement and it wiggles, and that stresses these guys to the point of failure. You can actually see an indent from the the previous style band clamp that was wrapped around this bracket. And that's simply because in the wind, this bracket was just wiggling, and eventually the clamp fails. So, new system, new approach. We're gonna run a piece of ready rod right through the light pole and bolt this in place. I've drilled these holes through here. My only hesitation now is because of the thickness of this wall here, and this is a cast piece, I wanna make sure that this doesn't crack. So what you see here is what I like to call the walk of shame. I think essentially the concept was good, but the fail point were the band clamps again. Not at the corners like last time, but at the gear clamp itself. So we're done fooling around. We are eliminating as much of the hardware as possible, and we are going to bolt it right to the pole. Right there. No way of knowing where the wires are at this point, only that they're in there. So after drilling holes in the banner bracket itself, I positioned it on the light pole and I'm drilling holes in the poles here. It's pretty hard steel, and we found out pretty quickly that some cutting oil and a step bit was the way to go. Okay, so what Mark and I are doing right now is the latest modification. We've got the hole drilled in one side of the light post. Gonna go up and drill the other side now. And once that is done, we're gonna try mounting our first set. I mentioned that I was concerned about the thinner material where the indents were on these brackets. To overcome that, we're just using a couple of large washers which will transfer the load to the thicker, bulkier part of the bracket. And so it really just takes the thin part of the bracket out of the equation altogether. After that, we're hitting them with some Rust-Oleum zinc spray. Kind of makes everything blend together and also prevent the ends of the ready rod from rusting. As for painting the poles, that's going to be a springtime project. And yeah, there you go. I actually think this time it's going to work. Until it doesn't. And when that day comes, hey, we'll make another video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please feel free to do so. And until next time, have a great day.